and welcome back to Games Now. My name is Anna-Kaisa Kultima and we are here at Aalto University campus airing our last lecture of the year. And obviously the topic will be about COVID and games. I'm here with my lovely co-host Solly Park.
Hello
and
everyone.
She will also do illustrations again this
Live
year.
illustration again
Yes.
during this lecture.
So if you have any questions during the presentations, during the panel discussion, which is the panel today, just please send them in the chat, and you might also end up being a drawing on Solip's illustration board. We're going to have a proper discussion after the mini presentations of the panelists today, where we also will draw your questions to the kind of attention of our speakers.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, it's a little bit maybe too soon for this topic, I would say. When we planned the program, we were thinking that maybe perhaps already at this point of moment in the world we would be kind of out from the pandemic situation.
Right. We actually tried to have our panelists here together, sitting together in the sofa, and then have our masks off, maybe.
Yeah.
But then it was
So
just a hope.
yeah, we kind of like a week ago we got new instructions that were more stricter, so we decided to go to the Zoom mode, and that's what we've been on and off for the past year and a half, I guess, or 2 years for some people. So yeah, as you know, in March 2020, World Health Organization declared a pandemic situation, and it's still going. So if you're watching this in the future, I hope you're in the better place. So yeah, so we are super happy to have different kinds of views today, from game studios to game media and events, and to art as well that is about COVID. So let's
go straight
we
to
could
our
go, but before we
panelists.
go to there, just make sure that you follow all of our channels in social media and join also our Discord for further discussions. So all the, I guess, they're always so difficult. This direction, yeah, I can't really put my finger there. It's really hard physically, but there's our address.
Yeah, follow us and like our videos. You can also check out this panel discussion live on our YouTube channel later. It will be archived for you to check later on in case you're not with us today in the live stream.
Yeah. So yeah, let's go and get our wonderful panelists to the screen. Hello everyone. How are you doing?
You can have your mic on, everyone.
Hello.
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 So we have Heini Kaihu from Rovio, Petri Ikonen from EA Track20, Jaakko Kemppainen from the Arts Promotion Center Finland, which is Taike in a Finnish short, and then lovely Chris James from Pocket Gamer to share their views on how this whole kind of, I don't know, situation has been impacting their works and the areas that they are at. So I hope you're all good. Despite
healthy,
healthy, safe. We're all good.
Yeah. And three of you are in Helsinki, I think, but Chris, you're in UK. Where are you at?
I'm in Ealing. I'm gonna take this off. It's my funny joke. I've got a mask on too. I'm in Ealing in West London. Okay. So yeah, back in the UK. Used to be in Europe. You might remember it, but not so much at the moment.
And Heini, you are at the Rovio's office with all the family pictures of Rovio in the background as well.
Yes, I have my beautiful Rovio colleagues with me there in the photos.
And Petri, you said before we started airing that you've been just outside in the wonderful nature of Finland, so that's your background there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm back in very grey and dark Helsinki.
Oh no.
Well, it's a lovely place. The slush was just recently, so it's a great time of the year to have fun stuff, I guess.
Very short daylight. And
short daylight,
but
don't have to be outside.
Fascination going on inside and passion.
And Jaakko is with us. Jaakko has been in games now from the get-go, so man of the kind of foundation, I guess, for games now. So how are you doing?
I would say like 3 out of 5. It's gray outside and also inside, but I try to manage.
Yeah, Finnish lectures, Finnish presentations. Chris, you know this already. We are very brutally honest about the emotions that we are going
3 out of
through.
5 is pretty damning start.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about COVID. It's quite soon to talk about it. As I said, that we kind of hoped that it would be over by now, but obviously we're still kind of in this loop and probably with the virus for quite a long time after this. A lot of things has happened since the March 2020, and I think it's at least like a good place to take this kind of a recap of what has happened, what will happen perhaps in the future. There's a lot of impact of this situation. We're gonna have mini presentations for all of your personal views on this, and we can start with the events sector and also media. Chris, you have a lot to say about this situation.
Well, I have a bit to say, yeah. I'll just I'm going to talk you through my experience the last couple of years and kind of run you through it. And I won't. Don't worry about this. A lot of slides, but we go through it quickly. I do need to say that I've just had my COVID booster this morning, and I have felt a little bit lightheaded. So if I suddenly keel over on my keyboard at any point, can someone call?
Then we quickly have to switch over the screen.
We have to switch over the screen.
Don't switch over. Call the UK health professionals. Finnish ones may take a while to get here, but I'm hopefully okay. So
we carefully placed Chris in the beginning of the presentation. So if you don't see him later, that's because of the booster vaccination. But I'm pretty sure that it will be fine, and we'll get all the opinions of Chris also for the panel discussion. Nevertheless, let's just, I guess, roll it so that there's enough time for you guys to talk about your experiences.
Exactly.
But yeah, you will introduce more about yourself in your presentation so we get background for those of you who don't know who Chris is. And let's jump into this.
Let's go. Welcome, Chris. Welcome.
Hello. Hello. Well, I do have lots here. Who's doing my slides again? You need to keep advancing.
It is me. Just say.
That's all right. So, well, advance Renee, but I can't see that's it. Yeah, so you can one more on. There you go. So yeah, I'm Chris James. I'm CEO of Still Media, which is a games media and events business that's been running for about 15 years. I've been in the games industry, in and around the games industry for about 25 years. I'll talk a little bit about what we do in a minute and what we've done. Can we slide on one? Next slide, please. This is just like a COVID briefing in the UK. Go on. There we go. So before I start, I do want to. I'm not going to start 3 out of 5. I'm going to start 5 out of 5. I just want to say to all of you out there listening, as something that I say at all of our conferences, which is this is literally the very, very best time ever to be in the games industry. You're in the right place. If you're studying games, you want to work in this industry, you have come to the exact right place. So I've been around for 25 years now. I know I don't look like that, but I have. I can categorically say that the industry's never been bigger. Newsy reckons the industry's worth 176 billion. There's a projection by Bitcraft that's even more interesting that virtually doubles that. There's more games being launched, more people playing games, more investment, more M&A, more new formats and technologies, and more opportunities than ever before. Click. Next slide, please.
Here you go.
I need to click out. And the crucial thing to finish on that is that games is sucking everything else into it. We are bigger now than every other media category combined, really the media entertainment category. So bigger than music, film, linear TV, on-demand TV combined, if you believe Bitcraft's data. But still, this games is not just a valid entertainment form, it is going to be the predominant entertainment form. So yeah, you're in the right place, stick with us. So back to me briefly, next slide. It's a quick summary of us. I won't go through this in detail. I say I've been around the industry 25 years. Still Media was formed in 2006, focusing mainly on the mobile handheld games industry. We run loads of consumer and B2B media channels. We've run events, which is what I'm going to talk about today. We started running events about 12 years ago, and then graduated to conferences, PG Connects conferences. Maybe some of you have been. We do one in Helsinki every year, about 8 years ago. And over the years, that's escalated to 5 live conferences and about 20 other live events, mixers, awards, parties, everything, dinners. In 2020, we started off with a plan to expand out from 5 events and even more by launching an Asia PG Connects PGC Asia office. We'll see how that turned out in a minute. Quickly skip next slide, please. very quick, I need to say also that we are also now part of a much bigger business. So we're owned by Enthusiast Gaming. I won't talk too much about them, but a huge Canadian media company that has YouTubers, esports teams and everything. Next slide. Okay, there's no one about them. There's all the stuff they do. Next slide, move on. I've done my plug. So like, this is what we used to do. This is me in 20 various years up to 2020, January 2020. We run some of the best, I think, networking events for the games industry. What we're all about is bringing the games industry together and promoting cool stuff. We had some incredible times. We will get back to that. Next slide, please. This is what we've been doing for the last 18 to 20 months, though, which is, it's also cool, but it's slightly different, right? So next slide, please. So now I'm going to give you a very quick odyssey of how we got there and what we've kind of learned from it. So on again, next slide. So in January 2020, we ran our biggest conference ever, PG Connects London. If you ever get a chance to go, it will be back. It's brilliant. Also in Helsinki, but Helsinki was also the year before in October was one of our biggest events. London was even bigger. We had 2,500 delegates. It was growing massively. We did this great awards event. Everything was great. We were planning this, these spin-offs in Korea and China and Hong Kong and everything. In that first quarter, I was in Barcelona. I was in Helsinki as well in February, end of February, and I was in Jordan in March. And then I was set to go to GDC, like everybody in the games industry does. Then GDC, then Mobile Congress kind of didn't happen, and then GDC was getting smaller and smaller by the day. And so I was there in Jordan, in Amman, Jordan, in the Middle East. After being to Helsinki, probably I was a super spreader without knowing it. I was sitting there going, we need to do something different. So we sat down in March, thought, what are we going to do? Next slide. And in April 6th, we launched our first digital event. So we basically took PG Connects, which was a big live event, and we brought it online. We tried to do as much as we could online. We didn't think we had anything to lose. It's always a good lesson for anybody. Just do stuff, right? At the time, literally couldn't run our events. No one else could. So what can we lose? If it goes wrong, at least you tried. So we launched our first digital event, and it had conference talks via Zoom, as we all know now, like this. At the time, that was quite new, right? But we kept it in the same track structure people were used to from our live events. We kept the branding from our live events. We did meetings via Pitch and Match, which was a meeting system we then moved later to Meet to Match. But it was the same meeting system people have been used to before. I think we started to do fringe events, I don't know. We had all our media marketing stuff around it. So we kind of did as much as we could live, brought it digital. And it was pretty successful. We had 1,000 delegates, 650 companies from 60 countries over 4 days. Pretty happy. Next slide, please. So that kind of worked. We thought it was interim. Obviously, it became clear that it wasn't going to be interim. So then we thought, well, let's do another one of these. Why not? That's our business now. So then we launched another event that got even bigger. We fixed a load of the stuff that we're doing from the first event. We added in, again, we looked to add more of the things that people loved from the live events. We did these fringe events, which if you come to our events, you've got these things called Big Indie Pitch, where indie games companies can pitch. You've got Investor Connect, where investors can meet publishing companies. And we tried to create digital versions or approximations of all this stuff. And it got even bigger. We also spent time moving everything else we'd be used to doing, like our pitches, like our top 50 game maker thing we did every summer, into digital format. Like, not everything worked. Not everything works well, but some of it did. And we also discovered some new stuff. We started this new thing called masterclasses, which is a way of sharing more in-depth lessons to people in the industry. We also launched our round tables, which were kind of like a version of our kind of free mixers as a digital thing. And then we kept on, and with PC Digital, we went Helsinki, which was, you're in Helsinki, we know Helsinki. PGC Digital wasn't in Helsinki, but it did have me in a sauna environment. And it was our biggest event ever. Q4, next one, please. And then it just continued. Basically, we kind of grew. We just basically realized, what I'll come into in a minute, that people needed to connect still. It was still a demand for this. We couldn't do live events. We desperately wanted to do live events. We wanted to then. And we obviously planned in Q4 to get back to those live events. What we learned, next slide, at the end of Q4, we learned a couple of things. Firstly, if you're doing digital stuff, and you'll know this from making games or any digital project, evolution is key. If you don't evolve, you die, right? So every show we try to add something, to do something, to change something. And I think that is absolutely key. If you're ever trying to run live digital events, you just need to keep refreshing it and trying stuff. And not all of it's going to work. A lot of it probably won't. But we a lot of what we did kind of worked. We kept trying to improve and enhance that. One of the things we did, which I think we're really proud of, is that we kind of built the same ethos of the events team into this event. And so we had a full events team working behind the scenes to keep everything going. Next slide, please. I'm getting through as quickly as possible, not much left. Okay. We didn't evolve hosts, but we did evolve haircuts. The interesting thing about this is usually when you see events, you don't get to see that moment in time so easily. But this is my evolution of wider face and bigger hair over a year, which I thought was quite interesting.
When was the fourth picture with the biggest hair?
That was the fourth. That was actually in January. That was in January 2021. Yeah,
I think everybody had their hair biggest.
That was it. Yeah, that was when I just got to the point of I can't be bothered. I don't know if I could get to the hairdresser. I just couldn't be bothered anymore. I just let it. Everybody was like, it was that kind of I just got out of bed look. Moving on, next slide, please. And then 2021. I won't dwell on this. We all know we were expecting to get back to live events. It didn't happen. What we did learn, however, throughout the year is that we did one live event in the Mobile Games Awards, which was a kind of hybrid event, which was streamed live, but it was also streamed over YouTube and Twitch and things. But it was also kind of live in an event in a venue in London, and that worked pretty well. Although streaming stuff is hard, as we learned as well. But yeah, digital events again was really strong. But what we saw is that by the last Q3, and which I'm sure you've all felt, you get zoomed out, right? Over a period when your social interactions were on digital, when your education was on digital, when your day-to-day work was on digital, and going to a conference that was digital was an increasingly hard sell. And towards the end of the year, especially with return of live events, we've kind of seen that transition, this idea that everyone's going to just go digital events forever is just not real. It's one takeaway. It's just not going to happen. People, it's valuable, but people don't want to just do this. They want to meet face to face.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we also the good thing though about digital events, I think I'll talk about what we learned in a second, that kind of round it up. But it allowed us to do different things. So if next slide, I think it's the next slide. Beyond Games. So we launched this thing called Beyond Games, which is an event we probably would never have easily been able to do in the real world, where it was the thing where we brought together people from fashion, from music, from film, from sports, to come and talk about where the future and the frontiers, the games industry. And that was in May. That was kind of as Metaverse was becoming hot, before it got super hot in this last few months. And that was something that this kind of crisis and this digital thing allowed us to do. And I think that was quite interesting. So we're not going to abandon our digital events entirely, but we are. Next slide, please. We are going back to live. That's kind of us now. Hopefully some of you will be able to come along. This is not a plug, but we are going to be going back to live events. We're running a lot of live events planned next year, the world permitting. And I have seen the demand. I was at Slush recently in Helsinki. I mean, 3 or 4 events live in the UK. The sheer joy of face-to-face meetings has been kind of incredible. And I think people maybe don't want to get on a plane every week. They don't want to kind of change everything, but I think they want to go back to live events. So I think you will find yourselves, whenever is acceptable, hopefully early next year, going back to live events. They will be hybrid events. There will be opportunities to join and interact digitally, but live events are just a thing. Everybody I know in the events business is planning live events. Some of them might get postponed again. The whole thing might get pushed back 3 months, but it's holding it. It's just delaying. It's not stopping. So next slide, please. I think this is the last one. So yeah, my last slide is kind of what do we learn from all this? It was really clear we learned people in this industry. It's a very social industry. It's an amazing industry. I love it. People do need to want and need to connect. So we provided a service, as did others, that was needed. People needed ways to connect. But digital events are just not the same. They do some really good stuff, but they don't, and they can make you have a meeting, you can arrange stuff, but you can't have the fun feel, the games industry family, the accidental meetings that you would get in a live event. They will continue though, and they can play a specific role. Where I think digital events will fit in going forward is quite targeted things, either something new, very niche, or that brings experts around the world, but it's not a massive event. It's going to be like 50, 100 people. Those things will be brilliant. Where you have very specific needs, like our Investor Connect, where investors want to meet publishers and developers to have initial discussions. That space, I think those events can be very critical still. But there is ultimately a huge desire for face-to-face. Like as I say, I'm in business development, I guess. I'm much more, I like that. I'm quite a personal person. I know I read statistics somewhere, which is probably absolutely not true, about how the Finnish level of general happiness actually went up when lockdown came along, because people had an excuse not to go out. I love the Finns. I don't think that's true, but it was quite funny. But yeah, I think, and the ultimate lesson for everybody, be it running a game studio, running events, whatever, is you've just got to stay agile and keep evolving. You've got to keep rolling with the punches. There's never a, COVID hasn't gone anywhere, so we're going to have more disruption. We've got this new variant, might be good, might be bad, we don't know. But you need, whatever you're doing, you need to sort of stay fresh, react to feedback, and adapt to survive. There you go. I don't know if that's useful. That's my thing. I tried to whip through it. I hope that wasn't like 4 hours or something.
That was perfect. Thank you, Chris. That's just amazing. And congratulations that you pulled through this, like that you really pivoted so fast. I've been looking at like some near fields, and it seems like that not everybody there, they've been just trying to wait for things to happen. But a lot of the game industry people, they've pivoted really fast.
The games industry is brilliant though. The games industry does that. Like we had 13,500 people over the last couple of years come into events. We are good at adapting. That's why we're going to win. That's why we're the best.
That's kind of now really showing how much kind of reactionary and adaptive processes the game industry people have been forced to already. So this is like not that different, but maybe we're going to hear Petri's opinion on this as a head of studio here in Finland for EA Track20. So let's see how it went with you, Petri.
Hey, thank you, Jaakko. And head of studio is a bit too much. Let's say head of design is perhaps more correct.
Sorry about that for whoever had the title, but you're amazing. So just go ahead.
No worries, no worries. And I would like to start saying, hey, Chris, awesome work on arranging those digital events. I participated, couple had a privilege also to talk there, and very nice. It's so convenient. Just zoom in and start talking. So well done.
Thank you.
So Jaakko, perhaps you go to next slide.
I need to
please.
change the slide. Yeah, that's very much true. I kind of.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. So my name is Petri Ikonen, and I'm a senior creative director at Track20, and Track20 is a mobile games studio here in Helsinki. So I started creating mobile games about 18 years ago, and lots have happened, of course. And first I joined Sumea, which became Digital Chocolate. We did those Java mobile games, and then later, 12, I joined EA. Next slide. So we established Track20 here in Helsinki, and we are fully focused on mobile, 60 people. We are really diverse team, different kind of people. And we used to be there in a one space, so near kind of each other, working very closely, having fun, arguing, all that, and big emotions. And now when COVID kind of happened in Finland, March 20. It was kind of 2 days warning, and we started to work from home. So a little bit more background about our studio. If you go to the next slide, the big thing we have created is SimCity Build It. Next slide, please. So it took 18 months to develop. We launched it globally 14. So we just now have 7-year live birthday. And just last week, we did a major update number 40. And if you look at very carefully at that picture, you can perhaps identify a couple of buildings, perhaps from Savonlinna or from Helsinki. or from. So there are new content in the game. So we have a new mayor's past season there called Finland, 1,000 Lakes. So look for that awesome content to play with. So that's what we are working on. And now if I kind of very quickly thought that what has COVID meant for us as game developers? On the other hand, as Chris said, I mean that it's very good time to be in the mobile games business. There's nothing wrong with business. COVID happened, actually business went up. So there's, and we have been recruiting and growing, and you can see all that stuff going on, and there's a lot of money in the market and new players and all that. But on the other hand, we are alone at home, working hard. Many of us are kind of have these Zoom marathon days from early morning until late night, especially if you are working in the bigger companies. We operate in multiple time zones. So it means that you are more or less all the time in Zoom meetings.
And here we are again in the Zoom.
Yeah. But what was very interesting was that team adapted this new way of working so quickly. 2 days and full speed. Okay, Zoom, how does Zoom work? Okay, what are best practices with Zoom and Zoom meetings? We took Miro, which is more like a virtual whiteboard that has been now widely used in meetings to draw and write stuff and make notes, and everybody can collaborate. But there are a lot of kind of bad things. You get tired kind of sitting in Zoom. What we do easily is that we are in Zoom meeting, but at the same time we are writing Slack messages or emails or writing design documents or something like. So we very easily tend to multitask, which is most probably very bad for your concentration and brain. And I'm sure that we all suffer from, or most of us suffer from lack of human interaction. Also, what I have found out is that if you have a hard design challenge and you are used to be in the same space with multiple people, having a physical whiteboard, arguing and a little bit shouting even and speaking top of each other in same space, that works, but it doesn't work over Zoom. You have to be more calm and a little bit perhaps slower here. You have to be really kind of now it's your turn to talk, and it's so kind of, for at least for me, it feels that it's slow to tackle those issues over Zoom if I compare to physical pace. But on the other hand, this is very flexible way of working, and it's very convenient that I don't have to commute every day, and it's just that, okay, I can open computer, I can start working, developing games, so it's very convenient. And of course, many of us are feeling that, okay, then after COVID, we want to keep also as flexible work model as possible, which means that most probably it's some kind of hybrid model. And that is also one worry, because I know that everybody at the studio works. I know also that everybody remote will work awesome as it works now. But I'm a little bit afraid that what happens really with the hybrid model when some people are on Mondays, some people on Wednesdays at the office, then there are always somebody remote, and then every meeting has to be both kind of that there is a meeting room and a couple of people there, and then there is a Zoom and someone is there, and how does that work? All the hassle with that is something that's interesting to see what happens. We have to again learn most probably something new. Perhaps one last point that I want to bring up is this kind of the democracy of this work from home model. for example, we have team members from different countries, from India, from Romania, from the United States. And it's so equal that, okay, everybody is on one Zoom call, we are equal. In old world, it would have been that, okay, core team in Helsinki and others are joining over Zoom, and they are just small kind of small screen on television, and they are not equal then. But it's been very equal to work this way.
Interesting.
I think these are kind of my feelings at the moment, but for sure I do miss that kind of studio feeling and atmosphere, being in the same place with other awesome people working together to create games.
Petri, have you already moved to offices, or are you still all in the distance mode? So everybody's still in the same track?
We are very careful, no risks there. So I don't know when we go back.
Okay, yeah, that's very hard. There's almost 2 years now soon. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Petri, for these thoughts. I guess that was your last slide. So we're gonna bring Heini in. So kind of a similar view for another studio. Heini, are you ready for your presentation?
I am.
Good. I'm gonna give you the first slide.
All right. Before I start, I was just listening to Petri, and I think that, you know, very identical stories. So you're gonna hear probably quite similar experiences and learnings as well. But just a few things about me, and then the Rovio first. If you go to the next slide. I've been in the games industry for almost 20 years now, and biggest chunks are with Habbo Hotel, so with Sulake, and now almost 10 years at Rovio. And here at Rovio, I've been doing a few different things. So I was leading our casual puzzle studio for 6 years. And then have been responsible for everything people related for almost 3 years. And now October this year started in a new role as Chief Sustainability Officer. And what that means is basically looking after how do we do our business in such a way that it not only delivers the financial results, but is sustainable, and that we also give back to the world and our community.
That's very nice.
This is like, I am so excited about the role, and I think that it's an amazing opportunity to actually you know, really kind of like look at the industry that I love, and the things that I've been doing for quite a long time from a bit different perspective. So really excited about that.
I'm just gonna jump in just for a couple of seconds. Is it like one of its kind? So is there any other chief sustainable officers in the game industry that you would know of?
That's actually a good question. I think that there are, you know, some that definitely are working in kind of like the same area, but I do think that it's quite new kind of like role as such. And then something that what I'm like super happy about is that at Rovio it is a leadership team role. So that's also one thing that kind of like tells the importance that Rovio actually sees in that. So
that's wonderful, and congratulations for that title. And also, it's lovely to know that the global warming and all those issues haven't been forgotten during the COVID, as it is a little bit.
No. Thank you. And then about Rovio, also a few facts there. So as you know, we've been around for a while, since 2003 actually, and our business, obviously we are known for our games, and we are known for our red Angry Bird. So it is standing on two pillars. First, of course, gaming, but we also have a sizable licensing business around the Angry Birds IP. And if you go to the next slide, We do have at the moment 7 game studios in 5 different countries, and altogether we are almost 500 people and actually over 50 different nationalities today. So quite a diverse group of people. And then over to the topic of the day, COVID and what it meant for us. And I'll start by showing a Slack message I sent to whole Rovio in March 2020. And like many of you mentioned, overnight we transitioned to remote work. You know, everybody kind of like trying to figure out that how do we do it. And I must say that our IT department, amazing. I think that how they kind of like were able to, you know, get it working so smoothly. We wouldn't have been able to, you know, do it without them. Obviously, also all the people, but especially kind of like how they were able to react so fast. I think that was great. Transitioned to remote work, and as we know, still not over. And for the next slide, I collected a few key themes that have, in my opinion, described our COVID journey. Of course, a lot of other things as well. But these are just a few things that kind of like came to my mind when thinking of what I want to kind of like mention here in the beginning. And I'll explain with a couple of words with what I mean with a few of them. So there at the bottom, communication. I think that's the number one priority. And that was something that we try to really kind of like keep in mind, really trying to make sure that our people know where we are going, where we are, what is the status. It was not only about the communication of what we are doing as a company with our games and so forth, but also obviously what is happening with the COVID situation. So trying to keep up with the communication from the authorities, and then translating that into the language that our people are actually able to kind of like grasp what is meant with that, since, you know, we had a lot of people that were in a new country and you know, didn't really kind of like know what is you know, what is going on, what should I do, and so forth. So kind of like also expanding the communication from the company stuff also to what is happening in the world, what is happening in Finland and Sweden and so forth. So that was one big thing. And then what about the pets then? Well, I think that was one of the fun things. We got to see a lot of Rovians pets in meetings, but also, for example, in informal get-togethers that, you know, our Friday beer o'clock turned into Friday, you know, virtual beer o'clock with actually a lot of pets. So in some ways, I think that we got to peek into our colleagues' lives in a bit more personal way than before. So I think that was a nice thing. Then going forward and picking up actually something that I think that is really important, mental health is something that we have kept in our extra focus, as we know that this hasn't been easy times for anyone. The virus itself and everything that is scary about it, fear for oneself, but also for the family. And as I mentioned, we do have a very international community, and now they were all of a sudden felt that they are, you know, stuck and isolated in Finland or Sweden, away from their kind of like, you know, bigger families, and they naturally were then really kind of like worried and wanted to travel back, and actually we did then make sure that to the extent that we could support that actually did happen, that they, you know, if they are working remotely, then allowing that to happen from their kind of like home countries. so that is something that we've been kind of like trying to also, tell the people that this is like the mental health, making sure that you actually take care of yourself, that you seek for help, and that it is very natural that in this type of situation you probably may and will need help. So something that definitely was not forgotten. Then something that we did notice is that the level of connections actually did change a bit during the remote work time. Your closest team became even closer, and then and more important, whereas your studio and then the whole Rovio are perhaps a bit more distant. And I think that was just because of the how you communicate and with whom do you communicate on daily basis. Also because of those kind of like random connections, I think that those kind of went away. And when we were discussing about this, we thought that yes, it is fine that that your team is what is important, and that should be the kind of like the core and nucleus of everything. But obviously, we also kind of like we do have that kind of like Rovio family feeling, and we want also those connections outside of that, just that kind of like core team. And then flexibility and trust are something that we really kind of like kept in mind, thinking that how do we kind of like create rules and policies for the remote work. This has been our principle all along, and it also worked this time. We know that people have very different situations. Some may have kids that are now being homeschooled and so forth. We also know that everybody is very passionate and committed about their work. So this is what we kind of like built on, that we trust that people really kind of like do their work, and no matter what is the timing that they will kind of like do it, and really focusing on results, and not really kind of like that are you there with your computer from 9 to 5 and so forth. And then what also Petri mentioned, the design and creativity. I think that while almost everything else has become more or less business as usual, obviously not the same as before, this was one of the things that we also scratched our heads around, and talking with industry colleagues seems to be the case for many. We have used the game design having those very kind of like organic and unorganized moments where you just throw ideas and build on top of others' ideas and have those heated fun arguments as well. And this has been the most difficult thing to actually move online. And of course, we've been also using tools like Mirror and things like that. But I think that that's the core thing that we are still kind of like missing, that kind of like huddle in that team room. Definitely, I think that once you kind of like know then what is it that you want to do, then it gets again easier, and we know that some of the artists, programmers, that they actually enjoy that they don't kind of like that they can then go and do their own stuff. But for that kind of like creative bit of the design work, I think that has been a challenge to get it really working remotely. And then also when going forward and what comes after that, I have one word in the next slide, the hybrid. We know that our peeps that they do appreciate the flexibility, and we are definitely not going to take that away. And at the same time, our teams are also talking about the importance of getting together also in real life and really seeing each other. So with the hybrid model, I think that this is something that we want to do. And is it going to be easier than remote work or office work for that matter? I'd say no. And on the contrary, it is most likely going to be harder and requires more thinking and planning to really get it right. But for us, it's really the only option going forward. And I think that's what Chris mentioned in the beginning, the agility and learning. This also needs to be our kind of like guiding light in all this going forward. Really kind of like trying out things and seeing what happens and being ready to kind of like then, steer and tweak to get it right.
Heini, are you transitioned already to hybrid work, or are you still kind of remote phase?
Well, we transitioned for it for like, I don't know, 2 weeks or so. So we got our morning porridge, set up here in the office, but then had to actually pull back because of the restrictions got tighter again.
Yeah.
So we now we are back to remote work. Obviously, our office actually has been open whole time because we also kind of like wanted to provide that if you have hard time actually working at home, either you have a small apartment and you and your partner are both working remotely, then that we have a big office and we were able to actually safely provide the working spaces for our people also during the kind of like fully remote time.
Yeah. It shows in the real estate market that people are trying to buy bigger flats and move outside the cities to be able to accommodate this kind of a 2-person or more persons distance working or schooling. It's amazing. So Petri, has it been like that for you guys also in Track20, that you've had the possibility for people to go to the office?
So it's been very, very strict and regulated. At some point, we were able to do with a very small group, but now we went back to more strict. So of course we are waiting, and well, EA is a big company and they take it very seriously. So, but of course we are in Finland and we gonna follow that. What's the situation here, and when it opens, hopefully soon, then we can start thinking that okay, now it's time to return, and then also the hybrid model should apply.
Yeah. When I originally invited you, we talked, Petri, a couple of times about this hybrid stuff, and we were hoping that we would be able to already share about the hybrid model experiences, but it's not happening right now, but we can talk about all the other stuff. It's a bit depressing point of moment, I guess, but let's go and see what has happened to games. Like our original artist, Jaakko, has compiled a little bit of a list of things that we might look at. So I love your title, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I chose this title, Punk and Poetry, for a reason, and hopefully you understand my reason in a couple of minutes. So I'm Jaakko Kemppainen, and I work as a regional artist at Arts Promotion Center, and my work is to like promote games as an art form and try to develop the possibilities of game makers to work in more artistic way and make more games as a kind of different way. Probably from Petri's and Heini's, I don't know. This might be a dangerous ground to go, but let's continue. Next slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I've been working in games and with games for almost 20 years, and this is kind of really special time. And in spring 2020, when this whole thing started and lockdown started, I decided that I want to see how game developers and game makers are handling the situation and handling the COVID, because I think that people are actually using games as a way to express their feelings and tell their own stories and handle difficult topics just like other forms of art. And I was really hopeful that now we are going to see a lot of games, and I actually saw a couple of games in a very early phase. This is from I think it's from April 2020, and it handles the kind of the dangerous and unknown situation. Some kind of strange virus is spreading around the world, and that's actually what it felt back then. Next slide, please. And I started like looking at these games a bit more, maybe like 2-3 months ago, and I noticed that there actually are quite a lot of games made about COVID and Corona and so on. Some hundreds you can easily find from Steam and itch.io. Next slide. And I think this is like people are actually using games as a way of self-expression. And next slide. Here you can see few games people have been making, very like simple games. A lot of people were making their first games now. They were making their first games about some part of COVID. Usually in these games you are shooting the COVID virus, trying to kill it with with bullets. I don't know, yeah, maybe that's how we gamers approach our issues. We try to kill them with weapons. But there were also some other kinds of games, but most of the games in these services, they are about like shooting the virus, or maybe like trying to collect a vaccine or something. Next slide. They even someone got Santa Claus to help us in the fight against the virus. You are like protecting the Christmas tree with the Santa Claus and trying to shoot the viruses away. Next slide.
Is this from the Christmas 2020?
I actually don't know. I didn't find it earlier. I just found it a few days ago. And then people decided that like they want to like try to educate other people, like how to handle the COVID and how it spreads and what it actually means. And people started making these kind of adventure games, or try to say something like how this evolves and what we should do, how we should live our lives. Next slide. But I would say that based on my, just like I skimmed through like a few hundred games and played maybe a few dozens. I think that most popular mechanics are like destroying the virus by killing it with weapons, or avoiding the virus, collecting vaccine, or then they have these like visual novels or text adventures or something. These are the popular mechanics from the games that I found. But also there is kind of like social commentary games, and this is something interesting. It's like someone was making a game about like social distancing in a cafe. You are actually like doing this cafeteria thing and trying to sell coffee and keep people away from each other. Next slide. Yes, there was quite wonderful game about like the misinformation in the internet. You can see it in the top left corner. Trustworthy source of internet tells about like how COVID started and so on, and then the Bear Thrills ate a raw bat and blah blah blah. It's kind of like parody or something like that. And of course, someone thought about the toilet paper issue. Next slide.
Right.
And wonderful that Elina Arvonen and her company made a game about toilet paper right at the time when the toilet paper was a like big issue. And this is what I love in kind of modern games. You can actually like comment very quickly. You can make a game in few hours, a few days, and put it out, and people see that okay, now they are actually like saying something about the thing that is going on right now in the world. Wonderful. Next slide. And someone also made a wonderful game, 2020 game, about this like all the things that happened last year, all the like bushfires and Black Lives Matters and the virus and this like remote connection. Sorry for your background noise. Can you hear me? All these things, you know what this game is all about. We have all been there. Wonderful. Next slide. But then also people try to like express some deeper emotions and go go deeper. And this is also from the first game. And I had the first slide, and this is like heartbreaking story of two women, and one is getting a virus, and well, it depends on how you play it, but I'm not spoiling it, but it's a really beautiful kind of visual novel. And then the developer developed the idea of this like telling stories of COVID, and her latest game is about Grey Plague, and it has kind of fantasy element, but also the next slide you can see there's this action thing where the virus is trying to get into nose of the person there. Can't remember if you are playing the virus or trying to avoid the virus. Maybe you are playing the virus and trying to get to the nose. But also, when the pandemic started, we had like two remote residencies with between like game developer and artist. This is from a poet and a game developer made a game together remotely during 1 month, and you can actually, if you can read the text there, you can see that the like atmosphere of having this COVID all around us, it went through into the game, and also this like visuals are quite depressing. And next slide.
So the name of the game is Platonista Yskintä. Is that the
yes,
one from
Platonista
the
Yskintä.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, and you can see that the other was between the comic artist and the game developer, and you can see the walls are falling on you, and everything is like it's so claustrophobic. And this was happening in May 2020, and it nicely reflects the feelings that we had back then. Next slide.
I'm just gonna pause here for the non-Finnish speaking audience to kind of try to translate a little bit what's said there. So that's in Finnish. So there's a clock that has stopped, and it shows forever the 12:16, and it's more right than the other clocks that goes tick-tock. That's interesting. So there is a storytelling in Finnish in the game as well.
Yeah, so it's quite depressing game.
Oh, no.
So conclusion: people make games to express their feelings. They make games to educate others. They make games to comment the situation and state of the world, and also trying to comprehend the meaning of pandemic through the gameplay and making games and playing games. And the punk and poetry comes from this kind of varying quality of games. We have these tools, different tools for different people. Different people have different skill sets. It's like punk music. You just take a guitar and start playing, even if you don't know how to play. But that's like the attitude is that I start making art and fuck everything else. And that's wonderful that people are using our games and our art form to express their feelings and trying to tell their stories. Also, understanding of games is different. You can see it from the like genres and mechanics that people were using. Some are just like focusing on shooting, but others are trying to do something else also. And also understanding of COVID, like shooting is the way to destroy the COVID. But yeah,
easiest mechanics to do in games, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. So kind of our understanding of COVID also has expanded, that we understand it better, and now we can make better games about that virus and so on. So yeah, that's why next slide, it's punk and poetry.
Thank you, Jaakko. That was amazing. Oh, I didn't know that there were so many of these tiny games about COVID, but it kind of makes sense, of course, and that it transformed into the art form. People express their feelings. Oh wow! It's not the most upbeat panel that we've been so far. I guess like Chris had a very good beginning, and then all the Finns destroyed the atmosphere of this panel, bringing all the depression and the serious stuff. And I think that we're very good at being serious. So we've been winning this war in a way that the game industry has been hit the least, and there's been even like success of that. Obviously, not everybody has been surviving. There's been a lot of bankruptcies, and the kind of last straw happened right after the pandemic started. So it's not everybody survived this, but there's all sorts of different things that has happened in the game industry, and just for the panelists, this kind of a small question, like what do you like? What is your current calendar view for how far are you currently planning on things? Because this is just so keeping us at bay. So what is the what is the furthest plan for you at the moment?
Well, as I said in my initial presentation, like we're planning, and we say furthest, we're planning to just get back into. We're planning to step into real life as soon as we possibly can. Really, I mean, I don't take this lightly. We would never run an event that we thought was dangerous. We wouldn't put certainly any of our delegates or our partners, and certainly not our staff either, at risk. But I think, you know,
we're ready to go back.
We can't equally. I don't personally feel we can equally be dictated to forever by this. It's not that we shouldn't change our lives and adapt, but I do feel that we are. Most people I'm talking to, and maybe this is the British approach as well. It's maybe not ideal. I don't know. Is talking more in terms of how we get back to normality, not how we adapt to some new hybrid world in which everything changes. But yeah, one thing I wanted to say, which I didn't mention in my talk, everybody else is really wonderful talking about how socially responsible they are for their companies and how they're worried about everyone's mental health and everything, which I am as well. But one thing that's important to note is that Still Media has been what we call a distributed media business, or a distributed company, ever since it started like 15 years ago. So we have a small office in Bath, but we don't have a central office in the same way that kind of Rovio and other big game studios do. So the kind of our staff are used to working from home. So it's not that we don't care about them being at home or we're trying to adapt, but they've been doing that for, you know, forever. So it was less of a kind of a transition for us. But to answer your question, yeah, I'm just eager to get back to some form of normality. I think it is coming. This variant, obviously, it's concerning, and we have to follow the science and react. But you know, we will beat this. Upbeat. We will beat this. We are going to be.
We will beat it.
So I want to get back to Helsinki again. I love being in Slush. I want to be back running our events in Helsinki and traveling around.
So how about others? Like, are you just planning normally? It's just a part of the everyday stuff currently. It's not affecting too much.
Well, I think that at least for us, it's like I said, I think that we want to kind of like also embrace the hybrid work, meaning that there is that flexibility. Having said that, I think that we basically kind of like at least in theory had that already before, but that was more kind of like that. Okay, we allow that, but we don't necessarily kind of like, you know, have a great support for that. And I think that now what is kind of like then changed is that you really kind of like also want to kind of like support that. But we, you know, like I said, we had the plans, we had the kind of like, you know, all the teams we're ready to start, and we, you know, kind of like dipped into our toes to the hybrid thingy, and then you know, had to revert. So I think that we are very eager to actually really go whatever that is called. I don't like the new normal myself as a word, but you know, that we actually are seeing, you know, freely that we are no longer restricted by the actual, you know, pandemic, but more kind of like that how do we want to work. And I think that we are all very ready for.
Yeah, how about Petri? You haven't dipped your toes yet in the hybrid, but planning to.
No, but I would more or less second Heini that we have to be ready for the, let's say, the new normal or the new world, whatever comes, whenever pandemic is over, and then we start to learn the new thing called hybrid.
Yeah, Jaakko, you have been also advertising all these kind of funding possibilities for the artists, like game artists. Like how further are you planning for? Because this is still affecting for a long time. So how far are the plans for instance, Taike, for improving the life with COVID?
I don't know really about like the COVID funding from Taike or somewhere else. Like if there are going to be new rounds coming. Well, there is one round. I think the applying period is right now, but I think we are taking it step by step from here.
Yeah. So
yeah, but I also on my personal like projects, I think the next spring is going to be more or less hybrid or remote. But next autumn we are planning like going heavily live because we are like organizing a huge game art exhibition in Kouvola.
Right.
And we are having the art museum filled with games, and it's quite difficult to have that like remote. And also something else is going on, but I hope that in next autumn we manage to organize that, and from there on there will be more live events. But I also think that the streaming is here to stay. That even though if we have some like live lectures or presentations or something, we are going to stream them from here to eternity.
So it feels to me that so this is almost the worst time ever to have the panel about this thing, because we are very much like waiting, and we're like maybe even more so than the 2 months in that we were waiting that it's over in 3 months. But we are now very much waiting that what we will do like immediately when it's possible to do things. So what do you think? Like we already surfaced this a little bit, that it seems like the game industry people and us in the whole ecosystem, we've been so used to this kind of adapting to things, and it also kind of recovers this distance working skills and tools already. I remember being like way back in the Digital Chocolate, checking what you guys do there, and everybody was silent at the open layout office talking in Skype. So like the kind of the transition in overnight must have been to do with the fact that was it was out there, like Chris also said, that you've been remote the 15 years already. So that's like, what do you think? Like, have you been talking to anybody outside games like how they are doing with this compared to you? Or do you talk with anybody outside games, basically?
Are there people outside games? What are they doing?
Because it seems like that for me, when I've been talking with, for instance, with my husband who is working outside games, that the kind of level of that adaptation, it almost made me feel angry that why can't you just do this? Like, because it's so easy. Like it for us in our bubble, this is like just so normal without the new normal.
I think that's a fair point. I think my wife's in academia, so she works at a university, and she's I think you're obviously an academic institution here. I think academia has always been used to trying different things as well, but it does seem some of the issues they're dealing with are quite, and their attempts to adopt some of the technology is kind of quite glacially slow. I'm kind of going, why is this so hard?
Yeah.
But yeah, I also work. I've got a business in the football space, and obviously, sports industries. I've been to lots of dinners and events in that space. I mean, a couple of film industry events. I sense that. I sense that it is similar. I think games is just. I don't know if it's a thing due to the youth of our industry, but yeah, I think we have proved more adaptive. But I think also the prevailing wind's kind of going our way. Like we can make games remotely. I know it's harder, and people can play them remotely. It's whereas of sort of making films without people being next to each other is quite tricky, right? So we've kind of had the COVID's been, obviously it's been a terrible thing globally, and it's not been great for everybody individually, but it didn't impact on us
the same way.
In the same way, and in some ways, anybody in the digital media industry won't want to talk about it, publicly too much, but it has been massively beneficial, right? It's all the trends that were happening anyway have been, pushed forward another couple of years. Like, there's sort of people in Disney Plus and Netflix and stuff, as well as Spotify. Well, everything's kind of moved further and further down that digital distribution route. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting what you were saying earlier about someone else in the panels. I was about how this hybridity. I did say myself we're adaptive, but I guess I'm maybe from an events perspective. I just know how much better live events are than digital events. Not this one, which is great, but generally, I don't think you can replace that stuff easily. I just don't think you can replace that face to face. So I've not seen it yet, anyway.
Yeah. So
maybe the metaverse will save us, eh? That's another big topic.
There's actually one question about metaverse, but let's not go there yet. Let's just, Heini and Petri, and maybe also Jaakko, what are the tools if we are kind of identifying that creativity and this kind of sudden or a spontaneous ideation together with your colleagues is kind of out now. So what are measures and techniques that you are currently using for trying to retribute that, or kind of to cover the lackings of the I don't know, water cooler effect, talking to each other casually? What do you do, guys?
I think that the one thing that we've kind of noticed is that that since it doesn't kind of let's just put it that way, that probably it should have been kind of working like that already before. But I think that, for example, the role of the facilitator is actually kind of has way more importance now. So that you actually that you are able to kind of I don't think that having kind of structured workshops is necessarily a bad thing, but that it is kind of it still kind of needs to leave that room for the kind of thinking and creativity, and I think that in many cases that can also mean silence during the actual kind of workshop, which is very uncomfortable even for the Finns. So I think that's you just need to kind of keep on kind of learning and understanding that how does that work. Also, getting some guests to your kind of normal working groups and so forth. So I don't think that there's necessarily kind of one size fits everything kind of and all solution, but you just need to kind of know your team super well and understand that what really kind of works for them.
Is the facilitator from within the team, or is it someone from the a general person in the company, or how do you do that with facilitating?
That's actually a good point. What we've done both. So for example, for the I would say that for the game teams, it probably needs to be somebody in the team itself, as that should be kind of fairly kind of regular activity and exercise that you do. But then, for example, for the if we think of, for example, the strategy sessions and things like that, having an external, whether it is the actually company external or just kind of somebody outside of the team, doing the facilitation, I think that can be a good thing. But I within kind of game team, I think that it is as important that you kind of that your team, you know that this person has great ideas, but it just takes some time for those ideas to actually emerge and be set out in a team environment. So just making sure that you get all those ideas, but still I'm I don't want to sound kind of negative, but I do think that that's still a lot easier
face to face.
I think that you do lose a bit of kind of nuances and kind of being able to really kind of see the dynamic of the situation and how the people kind of really work. But we just need to try. I think
Oh, but Petri, you talked about democracy between teams. So there's been like different studios and interaction between that. How did you solve the kind of a distance between the people in different countries before COVID, and how is it now?
No, well, basically, we already that time it was the high. What will happen with the hybrid? It was that okay, Helsinki team is in one meeting room, and then people join all over the world over Zoom, and then we have those on television. So video conference, right?
Yeah, so that already happened before COVID then.
Yeah, years and years. So I think this is one thing why we were so ready for this COVID, that we have, I mean, that all of us, we have been practicing this, I don't know, at least last 10 years.
Also with course, creative practices like brainstorming and those kind of things.
Yeah, for certain level, for sure. But what I learned during these 18 months or even more is that this kind of Zoom creativity needs a new meeting culture. And it's been a kind of hard learning that, okay, we can't talk top of each other. And yes, nuances are missing and we need some kind of new structure. The bigger the group, the more difficult it is. So I'm now trying to strategize that, okay, we are going to now brainstorm about this new feature. Okay, I do a couple of very small teams and then start to build it. So, and those meetings have to be well prepared. Otherwise, it will be a mess and easily shouting and bad emotions. So you have to really kind of prepare and think group size and also kind of agree together that what is this new Zoom culture, so that it don't go this kind of hectic shouting or anything like that. It's tough.
Yeah,
I think that it's not necessarily kind of like even bad that you don't kind of like, you know, have those massive, you know, team meetings, but that you actually kind of like divide people based on, you know, who's really interested in you know, fleshing out this and this feature, as long as you kind of like then remember to also communicate to the others that what was discussed, what was decided, so that the information doesn't kind of like then get lost.
Exactly. I think that's a very good strategy. Have a smaller teams, prepare, brainstorm, then have a proposal or a couple of variations, then have a bigger team and hey, we'll present all this. And now it's time for feedback, give additional ideas, criticize whatever, and then we iterate based on that. So it just need more structure and a little bit strategy. If I compare to studio where it's so easy to have ad hoc meetings, even big ones, people can shout top of each other, hopefully behave very well. But I mean that it's kind of so dynamic. And you can't be so dynamic over Zoom, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jaakko, how is you've been trying to push like game artists to or art game people and us game developers and professionals to work also with other forms of art. How is this collaboration possible now in this situation where we can't like have them in one room and let the magic happen? How is that?
Well, we are having tomorrow like meeting of 14 people in one room.
Right.
so we are actually going back live because I think that we need that kind of thing, and when it's still possible. It was more possible a few weeks back, but now it's on the limits and so on. But yeah, I would like to say that last autumn we had a wonderful series of workshops for artists, and they were like day-long or many hours-long workshops, and we started every day with a break. And that's the one thing I learned. We should always start with a break.
Was that in Zoom or was that in the physical space?
In Zoom or whatever it was, but the idea was that we don't have this like water cooler effect now. We don't have informal meetings. We can't share like free ideas and so on. But if we just reserve time from our calendars for that, it's like instead of like having like 1 hour sessions, have like 75-minute sessions, and for the first 15 minutes have a break, so people can just talk freely, have coffee, and then continue from there to the actual meeting. That might work. I don't know. It worked really well with the longer workshops, and we are going to do that also live tomorrow, that we start with the break, because it's a nice way to like get to know each others and have some kind of freedom. We are living in too hectic world now. All the Zoom meetings, they have a schedules, they have like agendas, and everything is just like this, and that's exhausting. We need to have those breaks.
For me, it seems like that this kind of informal has become so much more visible now that we're so much far in the distance work experiment, or so to speak. Chris, you must be like very well aware that within your physical events, there's been a lot of like thought sharing in the corridors and after hours, and this kind of a brain kind of a, like, I don't know, like a hive mind brainstorming happening. And you've been the main facilitator, the giving the excuses of following the talks, but then to actually talk with each other in the corridors. But you've
I think that is the magic of events, right? I didn't invent that. I mean, that's why these events grew up, and why they proved popular, and why, especially in the games industry, but other industries as well, they've kind of proliferated. There's been so many, you know, maybe got too many. Maybe there was a healthy cull that came about, you know, and there'll be less going forward. But I you know, there's so many deals have been started, and so many ideas have been, you know, created around, in corridors, in bars, near the events. It's when people are brought together, and that's ultimately all an events, you know, an events company, or as a media company, can do is try and connect people and ideas together, and you know, and then smart people run off and get things done. So we kind of provide the excuse to connect, yeah, and promote specific things. But I think that's what events, that's where the magic is, when people just, you know, the best things that I get from live events typically, is when you've bump into people, you go through that, walking through a show floor, and you've probably met 50 or 60 people in a space of an hour or two that you haven't seen for ages. Not all of them are life-changing, meaningful connections, but they're all kind of human connections as well. I don't know. I'm quite a people person. I feed off a bit of energy, and so I find that delightful. I went to Develop, which was a UK show, which was back on after a couple of years off for the first time. And it was in Brighton in the UK, and it was kind of, I was like a little puppy jumping around, and I wasn't the only one. Just like, it was just so lovely just to see people you hadn't seen for a while, and you know, they wouldn't even have to have much news to share. It was just great to connect, and there was a real energy about it, and that's what we, that's what we want to get. Sorry, I've gone on. I love events. I can't help it. So.
But you also, for your online events, you've also had, like, for instance, Discord community around the events. And do you have any stories that people would have a bit more casual also take?
Yeah, I think it can happen. I'm not saying there isn't a way of doing it. I just don't know. I don't think I've not seen anybody do it yet. Okay, maybe we're all in VR. I don't know. Lots of people have tried lots of things, like virtual kind of avatars and spaces, random chat rooms. There's this kind of chat roulette style system that someone tried to use, where you would just kind of be in a group, and then you got thrown into random meetings, which was kind of interesting. But then most people just think, oh, I don't really fancy that, and kind of dive. I think the real difference is almost not the technology I think the technology is brilliant, and Zoom is incredible, and all the tech around it is incredible. These different competitive platforms. It's about us. It's about the mindset you go into it, right? So I'm here listening to all this. I'm making some notes, making things. But I do also have, like, all my emails in the background. I have, like, you know, instant messenger things zipping up that, you know, you never quite turn off. I've got my dog over here. I'm just checking she's all right, and my son will probably arrive from school at some point, and the bell will go. And I'm just not in the space 100% in a way that I would be if I was at GDC or at slash the week in Helsinki or wherever, where I'd be like vested. My attention would still be there. I don't know if that's the same for the working environment. It probably isn't quite the same because you have much more task orientated, and whereas maybe there's a bit more of an open brainstorming space. I'd be interested to hear from the games companies how much of the ideation and the brainstorming process, if that works as well, sort of, with the people in the virtual room as it does in person. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know.
Yeah, we've been already kind of covering a lot of that. I don't know if you had your emails checked that during.
I was listening, but
yeah, but I guess that's one of the things that everybody is like pointing out. I want to comment before we go back to the creativity and brainstorming in digital spaces, maybe to the metaverse, because we had a question on that. But just to note that at least from our students' perspective, they felt that they've been, going back to Petri's point about democracy, so that we kind of on a senior level of game ecosystem people, we've had the privilege to go to the physical spaces in San Francisco, Malmö, Köln as well, for instance, so that the ones that doesn't have that budget or haven't had that opportunity, now they've been able to connect with people in Discords and in digital events, so that must kind of change a little bit of the
that's a really interesting point, and I totally agree that I think, I said, going forward we will definitely have a digital access point. We always try and make our events as accessible as possible for students and for new people in the industry, or even people just lost a job recently. We try and find ways in for people that wouldn't always find it easy to access. But I appreciate the travel, the hotel, all that stuff is expensive, so I totally get that. So yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, democratizing it, there is an interesting point there. But I guess maybe it's the quality of those connections. But yeah, maybe it'd be much easier to get in a room with some senior people and just make some connection than it would be to, even if you were there in person and trying to get in contact with them in a crowded place where they've got lots of people competing for attention. I hadn't thought of that. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Solib. You had a couple of questions from our viewers and students. One particular one that I'm waiting for is the Metaverse. But if you have a couple of others also to point out, please share.
Well, I will quickly go to the questions came from our viewers actually immediately, because there were a lot of questions that were submitted before the lecture, and many of the topics has been covered already, but then there are interesting points that maybe we could bring this up and then continue the discussion on that. Is that, again, Metaverse, there were a couple of questions asking if the working or meeting experience virtually become more immersive, more physical-ish and stuff, let's say, Metaverse, then would it become better? And there was a couple of questions came from our student about that. Do you believe in Metaverse? That's the first thing.
Yeah, what is your take on that?
And then the second, can you imagine distant working in your company being improved by those immersive experiences or Metaverse? If there's any tools like that, would that be helpful? What's your thought on this?
Game developers answer, are you in with Metaverse or not?
I think that's actually a super interesting question. Like I'd say that it depends on how what is kind of like the immersion and what is like how is it actually then executed, that is it actually kind of like then, for example, compensating for those kind of like shortcomings that there are in the other kind of like online meetings or collaborating in mirror and so forth. But I do think that again, then it'd be interesting to actually see that, for example, haven't set my mind up about the actual kind of like creative collaboration. But then if you think of kind of like different like town hall meetings and just team meetings, perhaps those actually would be really fun to have in the more kind of like immersive environment.
I don't know if you are able to answer as part of the big companies, but have you used any like Minecraft or other games and meet people in games in your, obviously you probably also been having those game rooms in your offices where you play together, but have you had like official meetings in these pieces of metaverse that are more 3D spaces that we call games basically, but have you had those experiences during the COVID that you've met people in games?
I know that at least we haven't had any kind of like, company official meetings. Now that is not to say that the teams couldn't have had their meetings, in different places. Let's just put it that way. Vague enough answer.
It's also quite interesting, people are playing more games while they're stuck at home, and maybe they're interacting with people in games, but what about game developers?
Yeah,
they make game for work.
Maybe it's too much in a way.
Is it too much?
No.
Go on, Petri, sorry.
Sorry. So it's not, I mean that, yes, the truth is that we do games kind of working hours, but I would say, for example, our studio, a lot of us then meet during the night. Is it Battlefield or some other game? So there are always a lot of games that we are playing then put together. Yeah. So this is I guess we are such a bunch of people that we have a passion for this. We want to develop this. We want to consume this. We love this, and especially we love play together.
Yeah. Chris, we're gonna have in January. We're gonna have Supercrowd's presentation on their virtual conference style or the tool that they're developing. Have you considered this for your conferences that you have this kind of tiny
we've
world?
looked at it. I've been to a few sort of metaverse events and looked at it. I think the challenge. I think there's a big opportunity there, and and it will go that way. But the challenge is it being a natural kind of environment and not a gimmick. So the more time we spend in metaverse experiences, and we're just used to doing that for other things, the more those conferences will work, because you'll have your avatar, you'll be used to it. I went to a couple where you had to get a game and download it, and obviously every time you do that there's a problem because it patches. You have
to the technical
and then you kind of got in it, and it was weirdly restricting, and you weren't really sure. It was just the game wasn't designed for that as well. So although it was a gimmick, it was kind of entertaining, but it wasn't really practical. An interesting thing I was going to say before, but is about a generational switch, and I think that's where the metaverse will work. My son is 11, and he'll spend at school all day with his friends, doing stuff, and then he'll come home, have dinner, whatever, and then he'll be on his Fortnite or Minecraft, talking to the exact same people he spent all day with, and they'll be talking about the same stuff. Like they'll be talking about games and strategy, but then they'll just be continuing the conversation they've had all day. So that to him is just like me going into the park with some mates and kicking a ball about. That's just his natural experience. Whereas for me, it isn't really. I don't, I have Zoom chats with people, but I don't go and find a load of mates and then go and talk about, sort of, I don't know, life and marriage and ambitions and business and within a game environment yet, because it's just, I love games, but that's a siloed experience for me. So maybe maybe I don't know what the age level is.
Maybe we're all too old.
Well, I'm probably one of those here. Like I'm like 27. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm pretty old now. So
I remember Epic having a statement in a presentation here in Helsinki that their kind of Fortnite lobby is the most used space in the whole game. So I like using games. I guess maybe that's where the metaverse kind of thinking comes from also, that you realize as a game developer, Heini must have a lot of opinions on this as being part of the Habbo family for such a long time, exactly. That there's a lot of hanging out in the spaces. I can't believe also that you say that it's your kids that do that, because you used to do that. You used to hang in games for extended hours.
But I didn't hang. I loved spending time in game, but it was different, I guess. It was a different experience. It wasn't like I have my have much more siloed experiences. I think that's the whole thing about the metaverse, right? Is you've got a lot of experiences that used to be siloed that will suddenly become more fluid. That's the dream. Whether like Ready Player One, whatever, you'll be in there. You having your digital goods with NFTs and something into that, but and then you'll be kind of that. You'll just maybe you'll go to your work in there, but then you'll go to an area where you're, hanging out playing virtual sports or whatever. I think that just connecting those experiences together a bit more fluidly is maybe where it goes. What that leaves for real life, I don't know, but I guess maybe we'll go back to our bunkers, never come out. Maybe COVID-6 will stop us.
Are we nowadays too used to technology working because the Skype meetings and everything that used to be like a horrible experiences? Like are we just too demanding as an industry with a lot of experience with immersive technology? I don't know.
Could be.
But Heini, what about you? Like, is in your mind? Haven't you thought about like the similar to kind of let's go hang in? Like, have you thought about maybe Rovio people would hang in Habbo Hotel?
Well, we've been actually talking about it, and I think that we even kind of like that we tried it, but not during the COVID times actually. But I think that what is, and this is perhaps a bit kind of like off track, but what Chris you said, that it's basically the same group of people that then just referring to your son, that they then the same people continue that thing in Fortnite, for example. And I think that was probably what was different in Habbo Hotel, because I think that there you actually had your Habbo friends that weren't necessarily the ones that you used to meet during the day, and I think that was the, and I'm just thinking that is that also kind of like I guess that can still happen, that you actually you have your kind of like then different communities, that it can be your kind of like real life friends, but it can also be other kind of like communities and friends.
That's totally fair. I think I didn't mean to say that people don't make separate friends in Fortnite or Roblox or Habbo or whatever. I mean, I played for a while. I got hooked on initially for work, and then I just kind of got a bit addicted to like a match 3 game, a Harry Potter match 3 game. I think Jam City made it, or Zynga, one or two anyway. And I ended up in this kind of little group with I presume middle-aged women. I don't know who they were, but I was like it seemed to be the only guy in there, and we would just be like talking about like things we had to do this week, and there was some woman who took charge, and then there's just these random conversations coming up about school and kids and COVID and stuff. And I quite enjoyed it, but I was completely, I don't know how the idea who these people are. They probably didn't know I wasn't also middle-aged women. I mean, maybe none of them were either. They might all have been bearded biker gang or something that were just kind of trying to live out their life vicariously in a different way. I don't know, but you're right. Yeah, you have different friendship groups and different communities. Definitely, that's always going to be the case. Would we want to be would we want to live? I mean, I guess this goes back to this hybridity. Like, maybe people, maybe I'm just different to some people. Maybe a lot of people are. I've quite enjoyed not having to travel quite as much. I must admit, I was initially, I was like, oh God, I'm not on a plane. What's going on? And then after a while, I was going, oh, it's quite nice not being on a plane for a while. But yeah, I do miss people. Like I said, when I kind of came back into a room of people, I've not had an experience really digitally that has matched that yet. That's not to say it can't happen, but I've not had that same energy and just sort of kind of euphoric and buzzing, bouncing things off. I mean, maybe I'm just not doing enough. Maybe there's things I need to try out. I haven't done that much VR recently. Maybe I need to get more into those experiences. I like Discord. I don't find, Discord's all right. I can't help being slightly resentful of how much money Jason Citron's made out of it. But it's a good tech, but I don't find that different from any of the other. We do use it, but I don't find it that different from any of the other messaging systems. Maybe I'm using it wrong. I don't know.
But that also kind of makes me thought that we're very used to game experience. I always grow up playing MMORPG, for example. Chatting with people were very casual, but what about those who are not? And I think that's what makes the situation quite alarming, that there is a huge gap in digital tool usage, knowledge. I myself also hosted a online game event using GatherTown, which is like a Legend of Zelda 8-bit kind of graphic style conference telecommunication meeting platform, and we used that. And then surprisingly, a lot of people had difficulties moving the characters with the arrow keyboard, even because this was their first time.
Yeah.
They were asking, do I have to install something? Do I have to what? You know, just sudden pause in front of a very simple game mechanic for us, but for some, no.
Yeah.
And I guess that leaves us a little bit more broader topic of discussion. I guess we could be a little bit broader for today's topic, but then as a game developer and game researcher, that's also some critical thoughts that we have to consider, maybe.
A gaming literacy. But then I'm kind of also gathering a little bit from your presentations and your point of views and experiences that maybe perhaps there is, for us on the other side, that we, you know, some of us laugh to the whole metaverse topic that rose from the time of COVID. But it's like maybe there's a little bit of saturation for immersive experiences for us because we've been there for such a long time. So maybe some of those that have their first experiences with GatherTown or similar kind of tools, there's the fascination point, and they have more energy now to kind of try to figure it out. But for us, if it doesn't work immediately, it's like, okay, I'm out. Do you relate with that, or you know, is there something else happening in there?
I could actually say, sorry, that I haven't been following the metaverse thing at all. And it's like, whoa, this is something I've seen a million times before. I'm not interested. Maybe in few years I'll go there and look at it and say, all right, decent. But I really was curious about GatherTown because it promises kind of spatial relations between the people there, which is not happening in Zoom, and that causes some issues because you can't like use your spatial memory on who was sitting where and who said what, and I can't remember anything from the springtime because everyone was just popping here and there on my little screen. Maybe these new technologies kind of help us. I don't know. Yeah, I've been seeing.
It's super funny to see like game professionals starting to like because you know, to me, from my perspective, the metaverse discussions like, well, we are there already. Like, what's the big fuss about? But then maybe we kind of miss the point because it's so normal to us that we don't even understand how useful it is. A couple of days ago, I played Minecraft by listening to podcasts at the same time. And yesterday, when I visited the same space in Minecraft, I remembered everything from the podcast. And it was like mind-blowing to me. Obviously, I know this from already previously, like if you want to learn like words, you put it in your house somewhere, like foreign language, that you can utilize the spatial things. But it's so normal to us that we don't appreciate it perhaps at all. And that's that we are so used to other tools. We are very, you know, all of you with the studio, leading a studio people, that you already use Skype and Slack and IRC back in the day, so that everything is so, you're so used to it that maybe we don't look at these new technologies and their promise.
Yeah. And there was another question, very brief question. Maybe it's also good for like one of the last questions we'll discuss today. Is, do you think the game industry will stay working remotely even after pandemic? And second one is like, is there any good takeaway, if any, from working remotely during COVID-19, even if the pandemic is over? So we talked about a lot of like concerning part, what's reality, but do you think that there's something that we can still bring this with us?
If the pandemic is gone in a couple of months, what did you learn from this?
I would say, first of all, for sure, we will continue also remote work. Is it hybrid model or fully distributed? this industry will continue. That there are that now COVID kind of forced us to really learn it and test it, and what have we seen that hey, companies are doing well. And now it's also opening that, actually we can hire from anywhere from the world, and we don't have to force that you have to relocate. So I think that's good news for all of us. You can be in Helsinki and work for some major studio which is located somewhere else in the world, and vice versa. So it's just great opportunity for us.
How about Heini, at your studio also leading the sustainability issues, that less flying, for instance, in the industry and those kind of things must have some kind of impact?
Definitely less flying, and I think that is one big thing that I'm super happy about. Of course we still want to kind of like see people face to face, and we are not kind of like removing the traveling from our people, but really kind of like I think that this helps us to kind of like be more conscious about that when do we actually need to travel, and it's also I would say that the one big thing is that that this whole thing has kind of like not even kind of like taught, but strengthened kind of like its importance. It's being agile and not knowing about things, but actually making decisions based on the best information that you have at the moment, and be ready to then tweak as you learn more, and be always kind of like ready to challenge your own thinking and improve things. I think that we were forced to do that, and it kind of like hopefully that is something that stays.
That's a very good point. It's a little bit for me also, like we've been talking about this reactivity and adaptation needs and flexibility, agile thinking, and it now really shows up. So maybe there's a lot from game industry to teach for the other industries too. Not sure if that's the end things to say, but if you still want to add something, this is our final minutes of the discussion.
I think that working from home point, I think is really the reason why it will stay, and there will be hybridity stays, is I think a lot of industries, not just the game, probably more so than the games industry, have now seen that, people don't just work less at home, and they don't take the Mickey, and they don't. They've seen, oh my God, actually we've shaved a load of costs, and people are actually working harder. Almost the kind of inverse problem that's been, which I've had as an entrepreneur and someone's worked from home for like 20 odd years, partly at least, it changes boundaries. People tend to work longer hours, well, certainly initially from home than they would do in an office. Because in an office, the great thing about an office is it's like, it helps compartmentalize your day. Obviously, there's loads of things about crunch and people sleeping over the office and all that stuff. But if you go in to an office, a bit of socializing, you get your work done, and then you go home, typically you're not always taking your work home with you, right? I mean, I know that isn't always the case, but now you're like, you get up in the morning, it's there, and then you kind of work when everyone's there. And then because your company is almost certainly international, you then got like the Americans coming at a certain point, or the Chinese already there in the morning. And then you're sitting there having your dinner, I'll just check this email, or you're watching, TV, I'll just have the computer open. And I think that's kind of I think working from home is going to be a thing. I think the next wave is going to be how we segment our lives again a bit more, and kind of get back to that's my kind of personal family time, and it's not a work window. And I don't think that's like evil bosses putting that on people, certainly not all the time. I think that's a bit us. We enjoy our job and want to do things. It's kind of harder to segment, and I think that's a challenge that has to be met somehow. I don't know how that's going to be met.
Some of the tools need to adapt to that too. So Slack, for instance, I think has the office
turns
hours.
off.
Discord doesn't have. Yeah.
Well,
maybe
Discord you can also mute for certain hours these days, which I try to do during the evening. But then, of course, we're definitely seeing the change of perception about how to work, where to work, right? And then now is the time for us to get used to it. And I think us in general are sort of agreeing that this working from home will stay with us for a while. Then it's our next question for the game industry here is that how we're going to utilize it, how we're going to make it balanced, how we're going to make it more efficient. Not just for the safety against COVID, but then for
and if you're watching this in the future, you probably know the answers.
You probably know the answer. Yes, exactly. Guys, this video will be archived on the internet throughout the year, so let's see what future lies ahead of us.
Yeah, maybe comment below, basically. But thank you for the panelists. We have to quit. The time is up. The Zooming is soon done. And hopefully you can move to your other Zoom needs or other meeting needs of the day if there's any still. I hope that the crunch mode and the crunch problems doesn't, come even bigger when we have these border problems that Chris noted. So thank you so much for your perspectives and your experiences, and maybe we'll have time like 5 years from now to reflect the entire change that the industry went through. We're still on it and experiencing and testing and experimenting. And I just want to say congratulations for all of you being able to work on these kind of hard times. The money comes in, but it's still kind of psychologically difficult and a lot of learnings to do. Solip, do you want to add something to that?
Well, certainly. I mean, thank you very much also for staying with us, also for the viewers, like yet again, Zoom call, yet again, Twitch live stream.
Yep.
We're still here, and hopefully next year, maybe this around year, we can have everyone in the studio and then have this moments like, oh, back in those days.
Back in the horrible days.
We had to do Zoom call.
Yeah.
We wanted to choose Zoom call. So yeah. That's my final remark, and looking forward to see what's ahead of us.
So everybody, just please join our Discord, follow our channels to see to get the updates, to revisit these thoughts later also. And so wonderful to see all of our panelists. I'm looking forward to perhaps see them in the next Pocket Gamer Helsinki, Pocket Gamer Connects Helsinki, and be able to have a beer together or a pretzel or whatever we're gonna have at that point, something physical.
Yes.
So thank you, Heini, Petri, Jaakko, and Chris for your views, and
see you very
somewhere in the metaverse, I guess.
See you guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.